So a couple of announcements that I'd like to make is, the first one is I want to welcome Jamie Mays to the council today and to our community. Jamie is the new executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. And Jamie's assured me that she will never get up and speak at a public hearing to the wrong public hearing. And, that'll be a nice touch. The next two items I have are a little bit, one is a little bit disappointing, and that is we're seeing an increase in vandalism to our parks washrooms, and if you want to have a look at a way to waste taxpayers' dollars, this is the best way to do it. We're constantly having to go and fix damaged washrooms all over town, and I'm asking the community to keep an eye open because this has to come to an end. The other thing I would like to mention, I was, like a lot of people, I was saddened and shocked on Sunday morning to hear about the mass shooting in Orlando, and it's unfortunate that things like this are still happening in this day and age, and I don't know what the answer is, but it's not acceptable in the 21st century to be seeing things like this happening, and I'm sure I speak for everybody in town when we are shocked and saddened by what's happened, and our hearts are out to all those victims' families and the people that are in Orlando. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor English, Councillor Orlando, all those in favor? Motion is carried. I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 24th. Councillor Nixon and Councillor Sauls, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes of the May 24th meeting? Councillor Nixon.
Your Worship, just under Community Connections coming to talk to council last time. Good presentation. You could see the pride in that team's work that they're doing. And when I ran for council in 2011, there was quite a swap from Community Connections that council wasn't paying attention to them. So I think we've come a long way at working with Community Connections. And I just want to check with staff if we've had any feedback on the resolution from council to meet with the school board to try and find a permanent home for Community Connections, because I know the province is really interested in building accessible public spaces, and it'd be nice to see them all on their own roofs.
Community Connections.
Your Worship, we forwarded council's resolution with, I guess, alternative land use proposal for the Mount View Elementary School site to School District Administration. We followed up a number of times as to when it might be presented to the board. We didn't get a response with the date as yet, but we know that they're busy with community consultation on other school sites and disposals, and they had a RFP for Mount View Elementary, the historic school site that closed this afternoon too. So understandable that they've got a lot on their plate right now, and we hope they're coming soon.
Okay, I just don't want to see it get lost. Community Connections needs.
I think the staff will be keeping an eye on that. Is there any other business arising from the minutes? We have one delegation today. It's Revelstoke Ware, and Maggie Spizzeri is going to give us a presentation. You have the floor, Maggie.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maggie Spizzeri, and I am the very new community coordinator for Revelstoke Ware. I'm taking over from Sue, and I'm super excited. Can't wait. And today I'm presenting our annual report for 2015 that was generated from Sue. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today. So our mission is to basically just reduce the levels of human-bear conflict in Revelstoke and the surrounding areas. This program thus far has been very successful, having reduced the average annual mortality of bears from 27 to just 7 a year. This lovely graph here shows the number of bears destroyed each year as a result of human-bear conflict in Revelstoke. Blue is black bears destroyed, orange is grizzly bears destroyed, and green is the black bears that have been relocated. The program began in '96, And as you can see, in '96 was the first year that took that far less bears have been destroyed, which is great. There we go. 2015 was a relatively quiet year for bear sightings in comparison to 2014. Reports concerned mostly black bears, with only 2 being in regards to grizzlies. You can see the number of reported sightings is quite variable over the last 10 years, but was low for this past year in 2015. Although the number of sightings were low, there were still a number of instances of bears acting aggressively towards humans and being habituated. Residents were also more willing to take matters into their own hands this year and destroy the bears themselves. Out of the 3 bears that were destroyed, 2 of them were destroyed by residents. This is concerning, as the public is not trained to handle bears, and this can become a safety concern for both firing guns in city limits and their ability to be able to destroy the bear and not just harm them, and in turn making the bear extremely angry. As you can see here, these bears were not really concerned with the surrounding of human activity and are kind of moseying along the line. So what were the reasons for the bear activity last year? We think that it's possibly due to the wild food being readily available after a dismal year in 2014, where a lot of the natural foods just weren't available, causing the bears to come into town. That wasn't the case last year, which was great. And we also think that that was possible, that caused a lower cub survival coming out of the 2014 year into the 2015, causing the lower bear activity in the area. There's another picture of bears sort of making their home in our lovely Revelstoke that we have here. So what was attracting these bears into people's yards? This chart shows the types of attractants reported. As we can see, the large blue section there is garbage at 64%, and the red section being fruit trees at 13%. And the remainder of attractants are pretty standard as for pet foods, outdoor freezers, bird feeders, that type of thing. The only one that we didn't get was beehives, but I believe, to the best of my knowledge, that all of the beehives are surrounded by electric fences in Revelstoke, which is great. So that's a very, very good deterrent of bears. So garbage is still the #1 cause of bears coming into people's yards, and the percentage has increased to 64% from 46% in 2014. Even Subway attracted a young bear there, although fortunately this one moved off without going in for a sandwich. A large part of our program is education, and this year we gave, last year, we gave 22 presentations to school groups, summer camps, new immigrant groups, frontline tourist staff, and pieces like that. We attended several festivals, farmers markets with display booths, and we also ran an electric fence workshop, and we partnered with the Revelstoke LFI and the NCES with their Garden Guru series. And here's just a picture of some of our summer kids making fun fortune tellers that have bearware questions in them, just to provide a fun way for them to learn. And this is just an example of Sue at our booth at the farmers market. We also place highly visible bear area signs around town at sites where bears have been reported. 51 signs were placed last year. They were left for an average of 5 days so that people saw them and knew that they represented a current situation in the area. The signs contain information regarding attractant management, in addition to being a strong reminder that bears were in the area. Feedback that we received about the signs was that they were a very effective way of reminding people to do simple things like put their garbage inside. This is our interactive sightings map. That's just a screenshot from our website, just to show the bears that they're all over Revelstoke. We also do door-to-door campaigns. In 2015, we visited around 372 homes, and we try to do our door-to-door campaigns within a day or two after a bear has been reported to us, just to make sure that bears in the area, that people know that they are there, and talk to them about ways to deter bears from coming onto their own lawns. We also have garbage tagging, and last year we tagged 22 garbage cans that were left out overnight, which, in accordance to the new bylaw, is no longer allowed. So we just tagged them with a easily removable sticker that reminds people, hey, please try to put your garbage out in the morning instead of the night before. And one of our active management strategies is our fruit reduction program. The main thrust of our gleaning project is to harvest excess fruit from the community and donate it to the Community Connections Food Bank. Last year we harvested 14 properties and gleaned over 1,500 pounds of fruit. Some of that fruit is also donated to the LFI and processed, and then donated back to the Community Connections Food Bank to make the food last longer, as we do get lots and lots of plums and apples here, and people can only eat so much. We also continue to administer the Adopt a Fruit Tree program, which matches people with the time and energy to adopt the fruit trees with people who don't have the time to manage their own tree. Our fruit tree mapping project, which started in the spring of 2013, has helped identify fruit trees that have no value as human food sources, but that attract bears due to lack of management. BC Hydro, CB Rail, the city, and private owners as well all removed some trees, which was great. And however, there are still some trees that do need to be removed, which I'll talk more about that later with other recommendations for 2016. We also had a focus on fruit tree pruning as the most long-term way to manage fruiting trees in Revelstoke. Here's a picture of Jake Ruse of Loki Tree Services, and he's explaining how to bring a cherry tree back into manageable form. And this is an example of a very well-managed plum tree, no ladders required. Our new website and Facebook initiatives have been gaining great traction. There were about 6,800 visitors to the website and over 81,000 views of the Facebook page. We've had good coverage from conventional media as well, with 16 articles published, 9 video interviews, and Revelstoke Cable running our message throughout the summer. We also put up posters and brochures around town in various locations for people who are new to town or people who are already in town or camping, that they can get information on how to deter bears out of those attractions. And like any organization who relies on their volunteers, we absolutely love them. So our volunteers played a huge success in our gleaning project. In these images here, a volunteer harvests plums a day after bears were reported in the same tree. When that bear comes back, all of his lovely plums will be gone. We are still working towards becoming a bear smart community, which I think would be a great initiative for Revelstoke to have, as we were the city that implemented the Bear Aware program. So I think becoming Bear Smart would be a great addition to that. Bear Smart is a voluntary provincial initiative to reduce human-bear conflict. Becoming Bear Smart is a 5-part process, and Revelstoke has already completed parts 1, 2, and 3 with our bear hazard assessment, conflict management plan, and community planning documents in hand. Part 4 pertains to having a bear-resisted solid waste management plan, and we're working toward this, and Bear hopes that concrete steps will be made in this direction in the near future. Last year, a pilot project was implemented in Johnson Heights with a centralized garbage bin, which is working out relatively well in comparison. And part 5 is to implement Bear Smart bylaws, where we are already well down this path with the new garbage bylaw in 2012 and the chicken bylaw last year. A wildlife attractant bylaw covering attractants such as fruit trees, pet food, bird feeders, outdoor freezers, and Unmanaged compost was proposed to the previous council, but was tabled until the election, and I will be approaching this wonderful council with a proposal in the coming weeks. In short, we are very close to becoming bear smart. The steps we need to take are implement the bear-resistant garbage system, or at least have a written plan to implement it, and to implement a wildlife attractant bylaw. So we do have a few barriers to the program last year. Our conservation officer retired in late 2013, and the ministry decided not to replace him, leaving officers from Golden and Vernon to serve our city. This has meant significant time delays from report of an incident until officers come to the scene, and also out-of-town officers are unfamiliar with Revelstoke and with the current situation, here rendering them less efficient in dealing with issues than if we had a local officer. Also, currently there is now only one CO in Golden instead of the 2 that we had last year. So looking ahead to 2016, we'll continue our education program and management initiatives. We'll continue our wild fruit tree management program. Some of these trees are on city-owned property, and I will also be approaching the council with a proposal regarding these trees in coming weeks. We'll also continue to work towards implementation of a bear-resistant garbage system and the wildlife attractant bylaw. And also, depending on the plans of the garbage system and the bylaw, we will hopefully apply for bear smart status. And we will also continue to lobby the government for replacement of our local CO. I'd like to thank our sponsors for their support in 2015, as without them and our volunteers, we would not have made the progress we have. These are our financial supporters, and we'd also like to thank the City and Parks Canada and the CSRD for our in-kind support. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks, Maggie. Councilor Brothers.
In terms of destroying an individual destroying a bear, are there repercussions, or is it just public education that you have to fall back on? Well, are there legal repercussions? Is it illegal to do so, or does anybody come back and say that's not allowed?
I don't believe so. I think it falls kind of under the category of like saving yourself kind of thing first. So I don't think there is legal. You can't just go out and shoot a bear if he's just wandering around. But if he's in these instances, they were coming into their property and killing their chickens in their chicken coops. So because there was that issue and there was the aggressive behavior that they were concerned for their safety. So then at that point in time, they destroyed the bear. Instead of calling for like the SEO, if we had one in Revelstoke, they would have been able to come out and take care of that for them instead of having residents do it themselves.
I'm glad that you pointed out that we were one of the first communities to take on this bear work program. I know from years ago that Revelstoke set an example that a lot of communities looked up to, and tried to emulate what we've done. If you look at those figures from years ago when 70 bears a year were being destroyed to where we are today, it's pretty fantastic, and it shows that the program works. A little bit disappointing to still see that 64% of the bear attractants is household garbage, and so obviously we can still do a better job. And I know that there is big issues with bear-proof garbage containers for individual houses, and that's going to be a real tough one for the city to overcome, if it can overcome it at all.
Yes.
And but looking at new development and bringing in things that will again help bring those bear smart principles into new development is always worthwhile. Your one comment about the city having fruit trees on its property, I was a little bit surprised about that.
I think it's just more on city land throughout the city, not like City Hall specifically. Is that what you mean, or no?
Well, there's a lot of fruit trees in City Hall, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But I think that I would prefer that you just went straight to staff on if there's something on city property that's not being looked after, then this gentleman right here in the plaid shirt would be happy to look after that.
Okay, amazing.
We have discussed that in the past, Your Worship. So.
Okay. Councilor Nixon.
Just, you mentioned that Golden's down to one conservation officer now. Are they planning on replacing?
Not this year. So there was two, and one has gone off to implement a training program of some sort. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the training program is for. So there, for 2016, possibly 2017, there will only be one in Golden until he's finished that program, and then he'll be coming back to the one in Golden as well. But it leaves us with even less officers for the next couple of years anyways.
I think that from the city's perspective, it's an annual request for us to be asking for a conservation officer to be here. So
Yes.
it's nothing new to City Hall, it's nothing new to the government. So,
Yeah.
and we will still make those overtones when we meet with anybody. Anybody else got any comments for Maggie? Great presentation, doing a great job, and welcome to the club.
Thank you.
When I made the comment about fruitcakes, I was talking more about myself than anybody else. Let you guys know that I wasn't talking about you guys. Item 10A. Do you want to go into the presentation? We have a motion.
Can I speak to this then, Alan? Is that what you're suggesting for a 10?
I think Mr. Thomas may have a presentation.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
Victoria Road, Mutas intersection we're talking about now.
First.
Sorry?
Oh, it's not.
You have to hit a button for this thing?
Your Worship, we have taken the issue from Michael Hayden here today to give a short presentation on the design as it stands today, the cost estimate, and to present some of the graphics that Michael Hayden has provided to assist council in understanding where the project's at and what the design might look like if this is approved today. Your Worship, I'll hand it over to David.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We just have been, oh, there we are. So we were here about a month ago, I guess, talking about the decision to move forward with the design. So with that successful vote, we have moved forward and basically have completed the preliminary design now, which has all of the detail in it, and the next steps are to, assuming a positive vote again today, we will move forward and finish off the detailed design and tender the project. So we are right on schedule with our schedule that we set out. We've kind of set our schedule around your meetings, so some of our deadlines are working well with the meeting schedules. So. And we needed to do that because of the limited time that we do have to get this tendered. So we're looking at completing the detailed design and the tender documents and putting it out to tender somewhere on August the 1st. So that leaves us only 6 weeks to actually have it out on public process. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an update as to what's happened since the last meeting. And I guess I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, so this is the plan. It really has not changed from we brought this as an option to the last meeting. And the main difference between this and the previous version was that Bend Road is left open. And so it has almost full movement. Like it's down to one-way traffic just onto that short section coming out of the Shell station and toward the intersection at Victoria. But other than that, it's fully open, and the design essentially is exactly the same as what we showed you before, although we now have all the details added to the actual underlays of this, what you're seeing on there now. So it has been reviewed briefly by by ICBC has had a little bit of input, and that, we're actually having a workshop session with them next week to just finalize their comments. It also was sent off to Ministry of Transportation. They wanted to review it, basically for your information, really. They don't have a particular say in whether we do it or not, but they are a potential funding partner, so they have the plans in their hands right now with the details to look at. What day did that, Friday? I think it was? Yeah. I should introduce David Long, who's with me here. David's the guy that's done all the detailed work on this, and so he is here to help me if I get stuck on any of your hard questions. So that's good. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I move on from this plan.
So David is the gentleman that's going to guarantee that this is going to work and look after all the problems that we have down there.
That's me. He's just the guy that makes it happen. Yeah.
Councillor Nixon.
Just in your drawings in front of us in the package, it's showing the bears and welcome to Revelstoke in the middle of that roundabout. And I just really have a tough time with that. Maybe it could be revisited later.
Yeah,
we don't need that right now. And if we have a young, inexperienced truck driver, I want him to be able to go bump across that roundabout.
Yeah. Yes, you'll see the bears in the renderings in a minute, but that's not part of our scope, and so we've just shown them there as a possibility.
But I want the public to know that that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, and so when we give you the cost estimate, that's not in there either, so that's just there as a graphic possibility, yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions before I move on? Yeah.
Just a general question, in doing all of this work, is there any expropriation that's necessary, or is it pretty well all city land that we can?
It's all city land, yeah. So, yeah, we've been fortunate really to be able to keep it on public property. All right, so do I need to explain any of the workings, or you're all familiar enough with it now? Okay, I'll just move on then. If we can always come back if you do come up with some other ideas or questions. So this is probably the biggest news of the day. A cost estimate that's been put together with actual information now. So the total is coming to just over 1.7 million. So that's 400,000 less than what we said last time. And I think, personally, I feel comfortable that it won't exceed that. We have some good information, and I think some of our prices are still conservative. So I would say we're in good shape to stand behind that estimate.
Two questions that I have. One is that what is the degree of slope of the roundabout? There's been some concern brought up, and so how close to level is it?
It's less than 4%, and David might have better information on that.
Yeah, the existing Victoria, as it comes down into Wright, heading, I guess that's sort of northwest bound, is about 4% until you would come into the roundabout area, and then that flattens out to about 3%, and then Victoria continues on at the existing 2%.
One of the other comments that's been kicked around a couple of times is taking Bend Road and making it a one-way loop similar to what the Woodenhead Loop is. Was that ever looked at? Is there advantages, disadvantages? Yes, no, maybe so. Was that looked at all?
Only very conceptually, I guess, at one time. One of the issues with that is it doesn't change the problem we have now. So we still have to get on and off of Bend Road if we do that. So we haven't done work on that. I guess the other part of the answer to that is that Bend Road could easily be converted into that if you desire to. It's not really part of our problem that we're solving.
And I think that some of the reasoning behind it is is partly why council was really adamant about keeping Bend Road in, is that it gives an alternate, it gives an escape route, it gives another egress out of that area if there's a problem. And I did talk to Mr. Thomas about, that can be changed at a later date to one way, but the more people we encourage coming out of the Shell Tim Hortons to exit out of the Bend Road, is less traffic going into the Mutas Road. So I think that there's some real advantages to cleaning it up and making it more appealing to go that way.
Okay, so you would be thinking about, let's just go back there for a second. So I know this is fairly small, but I think this, yeah, I can just do this. So if this came off similar to the way this is coming off of the right turn, and then this would become the equivalent of this one, that's what you're envisioning?
Well,
so you come off here, you
the
can.
Bend Road would loop like this in a one-way configuration. So you would then create you'd have one lane circling, and it would create a whole bunch of areas for transport trucks to park that would be out of the way and things like that. But I just think that is there an advantage to it or not, and I don't know if I'm really getting it, that there is an advantage to it.
Yeah, I don't personally, whoops, I'm back, I hit the wrong button there. Really, this left turn is the biggest problem, and until that is, like, I guess as long as that gets fixed, then we can do whatever we want with Bend Road virtually, and it should work. As far as parking trucks and things, right now, it's, in theory, they can get anywhere they could get on a one-way. Right now, it's two-way, so, although they would have an extra lane for parking if
Well, I think that's the whole idea,
yeah.
because there is no real parking that's available. Like,
Your Worship, I'm really not keen on encouraging the one-way loop. I think the properties that are vacant, undeveloped, adjacent to Bend Road, we need to work out what is going to happen on those properties before we make a decision on one-way roads, because it may actually impact their ability to get people off the highway. For example, if Bend Road if it was a frontage road, Bend Road was in a clockwise situation, we'd actually have more traffic entering this intersection if there's a hotel on the parcel that's labeled vacant lot. So we have to be very careful about what we tinker with here, with what we know right now and what could happen in the future. So I think when we develop these properties in the future, that's certainly something that we can look at. But I think you may actually cause more concerns from the adjacent businesses by limiting it to one way.
I just want to make sure that we are looking at these other ideas, and I got to say, Mike, is that we've come a long way from closing off Bend Road altogether and just putting a cul-de-sac on the end. So, I agree that there is going to be some concern about access to, especially that lower property. I just want to make sure that we're looking at some of these comments that are coming in, because I think that a lot of people have put a lot of thought into this, and I think that there's some good ideas that have been floating around, and it's up to us to make sure that they've been vetted. Mike?
Yeah, Your Worship, just on closing Bend Road, I've said it before, but I think it bears some comment at this point, seeing we are completing the preliminary design. If in the future those vacant lots do generate more traffic, it may be necessary to close Bend Road. Because due to the increased congestion, there would potentially be more vehicles trying to make a left or right turn out of the egress back onto Victoria Road, and it may actually cause a lot of problems at this intersection. The owner of these parcels has been made aware of that, and it is a possibility that depending on the type of development there, we may have to consider restricting access. And that may actually be a one-way access, and that may actually be the solution to the problem, rather than moving full access. But it's certainly something that we've designed this in a way that if it was required to close off that full movement around, it would be able to be done in the future. But it's not something that we're asking council to approve today to close that off.
Yeah, okay, so I'll carry on then, thanks. Yeah, so back to the cost estimate, just a couple of things I'd just like to note with that. It doesn't include a few things. There's no actual geotechnical report been done yet, but because we know we're next to the existing road, we're not really all that concerned about it. CP Rail has not had any input to this, but we're not really affecting them either, so that's another issue that just to make you aware of. Ministry of Transportation has had quite a lot of input to date. They're now looking at the actual plans. We don't expect any major problems there, but so you know that their review hasn't come back yet. See, we've included landscaping on the plans, and you will see some of that in these. What's next? We just have a few more shots of this in the 3D format. And so we've shown landscaping, which is already designed. The one exception is the roundabout with the bears in it, as we talked about already. So this is essentially how it would look from somewhere above the A&W, I guess. So this is a new exit from the Wooden Head Loop that would take us out and point toward the roundabout. This is now a one-way. You can come off the highway and come in here, but you don't come out there anymore. Getting into these businesses, the Shell and the Tim Martins. This truck is doing that movement right now on the slip lane across Bend Road and into the parking lot. Bend Road would bring people down. We reconfigured it. We pinched it down to one way at this point here, just so we could move it over enough that trucks can actually get out back onto the highway. So now one of the things I'll just again reiterate, but we have left movements open for people coming from town so they can get into Wooden Head Loop and back without any sort of constraints. And similarly, they can get into the Shell and Tim Martins and back out and make this left-hand turn and back into town. So without those movements, we would have had to put people straight across the highway. So this is a kind of a big improvement, I think, over what we started with. That's one of the major things. So anyway, that's that one. I'll just carry on here. Another shot from the air, sort of over by the Nomad, I guess over the old Nomad restaurant, and that's looking out toward the highway. This shot is what you would see when you first come off the highway, and one of the things to notice here is that we've developed this signing plan so that the logos of all the businesses. So this one pointing right would be the Petrocan, etc. Straight ahead it says downtown, and then the what they call a fish hook sign there, which is an indication of a roundabout, points you to Tim Martins and Shell and the Super 8. So it's just an example of the type of signing we'd like to see. We'd like to actually not use those colors. We think probably a more maroon color would look better there. We just changed it to that so you can see it better, what we were trying to attain.
Just on that point, is signing included in this budget?
Yes, it is, yeah. Okay, and incidentally, the bear statues there and lamps are going to stay right where they are. We don't have to touch them, so that was a good, lucky, I guess. Yeah, another shot looking at the roundabout from the CP Bridge, basically.
So one of the questions, we were talking about signage previously. What signage is going to be at the roundabout?
That is a good question, and that's actually a fairly detailed answer to that. There are a number of standard signs that go on roundabouts that will have to be included, or that we will include. So there's regulatory signs and sort of warning signs and things. One other item I'd like to point out is that this will be lit. There's, I think it's eight new luminaires that will go around this.
I'm not sure.
6, anyway, 6.
Actually,
2 at each leg, I think. So, and then there's some lighting that extends out from that just a little bit to make sure that it's illuminated properly. And that's all kind of standard design information that gets done.
And I'm assuming that we would have on here alternate route to Highway 1 East to
Yeah,
cut back on how much traffic we just go back.
yeah, all those signs are very important. So highway directional signs and so on. Yeah. So the sign I showed you in the past one though is a custom sign. So that one is one you won't, like, that's not in the standard
Right.
book, but we think we can enhance the signing here to make sure that the businesses are well represented.
Councilor Nixon.
So can we, when it says downtown, can we get the words 2 minutes ahead there? Like downtown 2 minutes?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
People really look at that new sign that comes out of A&W, and it's like downtown 2 minutes ahead.
Yeah.
Like that really grabs people.
Sure,
They-
yeah, that would be
Okay.
easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see also now, the interesting thing from this shot too, which I didn't mention earlier, is when you look through here, and when there's an actual structure over there, some kind of a feature, you can actually see it quite well, surprisingly enough, from once you've turned off the highway. So we think that won't be as scary as it might seem right now, because you don't see anything now with the flat road up there. But it'll look like something is actually there when we finish, I think. So, yeah, so that's that one again, and I think, yeah, one more, and I think we're done. So the cycling, basically we've put in some cycling provisions. This is going to be an interesting discussion with ICBC, because this one is basically there for people to just hop off the roundabout and get to the other side of it on their bikes. But we know they have to get back on the road before they like to carry on. So I'm not sure how ICBC will consider that, but at the worst case, what they might say is, we don't want that there, they have to stay in the traffic. So just to avoid some confusion. So that's just a small feature, but it could become important at some point. So anyhow, that's just a multi-use pathway that we put in there for what we think is a safer solution, but ICBC may not agree with us. And I think that's it, yes. So that's a very quick presentation on where we're at. So really, we're down to the details now, and ready to finish it up and get ready for tendering. So if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions from Councilor Reynolds?
Your Worship, I have several questions. In your initial design, which was very similar but also involved closing off Bend Road, you were able to express a percentage improvement. It was based on what the starting point and how much it would improve. It was at 100% improvement. Prior to doing the more detailed design, you couldn't provide an exact number. I think what way it says 95%. Are you able to model how much of an improvement this would be, this design?
No, I guess the answer is no. Really, those numbers were there to give an indication of what the options were how effective the options would be compared to the original that we considered to be 100%. So really, I wouldn't change those numbers from what we told you before. We haven't done any detailed modeling to, really quantify that tightly.
Your worship, a subsequent question. The way the resolution's put before council right now, it calls for a detailed design and then the start of the tender process. Why not have a pause in between to find out about commitments that we could potentially get from, for example, the Ministry of Transportation? It seems like what we have to do is approve the whole thing, and we're not really gonna have information on whether the ministry is gonna contribute some money to this. And I'm wondering if it can be structured in a different way, or why it's set up that way. That might be for the staff.
Mr. Thomas?
Your worship, the next stages, detailed design and construction procurement, are actually quite short stages in comparison to where we've got to now. And so combining those two things allows us to get to the point where we get to a pre-tender estimate. Right, at the moment we're at a preliminary design estimate. So we get a tighter estimate on it. At that point, in the meantime, the second part of the resolution is to talk about funding opportunities with a couple of parties there. This will come back to council for approval to proceed to tender. So there's one more step before we actually procure the work. And so we're definitely not at this stage asking council to give staff the authority to move forward. This is to proceed with detailed design and construction procurement. We will bring it back to council before that actually goes out for tender, based on that revised estimate.
And I just want to remind council of the budget that we have for this. We have right now $1.2 million collected through development cost charges for this project.
So, Your Worship, I don't have the actual amount of DCCs that we have available, but it's certainly expected to be funded through DCCs, as well as some contributions from the adjacent developments that have occurred recently.
So, and I think that the point that I'm trying to make here is that this is not a $1.7 million project. If it's approved and moves forward as presented, is not necessarily going to be 1.7 million of debt that's going on the taxpayers that will be paid in annual installments. So around 1.2 is the figure that I'm under the impression that we've got set aside already. I did yesterday receive an email from Minister Stone's office that he's driving through Revelstoke and would like to meet with me. This would be a hot topic that we would be talking about. We're just trying to finalize the details on that meeting, and we're going to start negotiating with Highway. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page as far as funding. Councilor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, to follow up on that, when I heard that during peak weekends on some of the busiest times, the wait for eastbound traffic to take a left into town can be up to 5 minutes. Certainly in my mind, this is an access and egress issue, and this is a provincial issue, and it would be great to see them come to the table. But thank you, Mr. Thomas, for providing that information. This certainly is something that I believe all councils are going to want before we make a decision on this. Regarding feedback from ICBC and the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, I believe it's before the Ministry of Transportation right now, so we haven't got feedback from them. Have we got feedback from ICBC? Not quite yet.
We have had some preliminary discussions, but they have offered to do basically a workshop session here in Revelstoke with staff it's basically called a road safety audit. So they will look at the design plans. They needed to wait till now until they had plans to look at, basically. But so they will take a look at their criteria, which includes just a number of geometric considerations and safety pathways and letdowns and for people to get on and off and those sorts of things. So they have some very good criteria, and when their criteria is met and they're convinced that it will potentially result in a safer facility, they're willing to put money into that to save money at the other end. So that's their motivation.
And Your Worship, another question. The cost with plus contingency is at just over $1.7 million. However, in the report, it says that the estimate does not include raw land financing, environmental mitigation, right-of-ways, building construction, property taxes or utility charges, real estate, legal service fees, and that the geotechnical report has not been done. We haven't heard from CP Rail. Is that going to inflate the cost? I'm trying to understand how much that's going to cost.
Yeah, we don't see that being an issue for the cost. If we did, we would have pursued that before putting this number together, but we didn't want you to know that those things are not included. Like, for example, we don't expect to have to acquire any right of way, as I mentioned earlier. There will be no building construction involved in this, as far as we're concerned. We haven't included any buildings. Property taxes, utility charges are really not an issue for you. So those things are just there to let you know that they aren't there, but we don't think they need to be, so.
And the other side of the coin is that we do have a $300,000 contingency as well. If one of these items pops up, then hopefully it'll be covered in that contingency budget, and hopefully there's a pile of that contingency left over at the end.
That's what we're hoping, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Councillor?
No, Your Worship.
Any other comments or questions? Anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Brothers.
That staff be directed to proceed with detailed design and construction procurement for the Victoria and Mutas intersection improvements as shown in McElhaney's preliminary design.
Councillor carry on the other part.
And that staff approach the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and ICBC for funding opportunities.
Is there a secondary motion? Councillor Duke. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Sauce.
Your Worship, I just want to bring up the letter that we received from Shell, package today, threatening legal action if we were to go forward with this. This is a concerning thing because this is an area that we need to deal with and we need to go forward. I just wanted to bring you that we councillors have comments on this.
For staff, I know that staff did have a phone conversation today about this, and I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to talk about, Mr. Thomas, but I think this is all part of this project moving forward. One thing I will say, Councillor, is that I had a lot of concerns as we started this process, and as the designs evolved a little bit and the Bend Road was kept in and the access is there, I feel a lot more comfortable about it. I still have concerns, price tag being one, and making sure that this is actually going to solve the problem, but I think somebody's going to guarantee me that it's going to solve the problem, because the community's asking me to guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll
But,
get it.
and I just want to remind council and the public that we're not doing this to fix the problem today, we're doing this to fix the problem that we're going to have next year, and 5 years, and 10 years, and I think that that's what we have to be keeping in mind as well. The community's going to get busier, there's going to be more reasons for people to be pulling off the highway, and there's more opportunities for a lot more traffic, and I guess I'm starting to come to the conclusion that right now, today, this is the best scenario that we can come up with, and try to appease as many businesses as possible. And I know that that's sometimes, as everybody around this table knows, it's sometimes an impossible task. Mr. Thomas.
Worship, just to comment on Shell's letter here that was received. We did have a conversation with them this morning, and just to clarify, they have been involved in the stakeholder process since early March. They have not actually attended any of those, but we've received written comments from them, and they've received responses back to those. Unfortunately, today was the first time that we've actually had a conference call on the matter with Shell. And I think it went quite well. From my perspective, we had a good discussion around all of these issues that the council's been wrestling with on the matter, and being able to explain to Shell, where we see community needs, the business needs there. I was quite happy with how the conversation went, and I'm not sure if it's the end of the matter with Shell, but definitely I felt like it was a good opportunity for the city staff to have a conference call with Shell.
Thanks for your input.
We have a motion on the floor. Any more comments or questions on the motion? Councilor Lando.
Yes, just a comment, your worship, it's a bad intersection and nothing's gonna make it perfect. I would encourage everyone in the public to have a look at the report from, it's probably about a month ago or 6 weeks now, the 99-pager. I've had lots of people with lots of different scenarios saying, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? Some of them were, I had that same idea too, but once you read through it and learn that, data has been collected and the models have been run and the people who are doing this have lots and lots of experience doing it, you start to see that's not gonna work and that's not gonna work. And we were getting, I think we've come up with a best case scenario for a difficult problem. It's not, again, not gonna be perfect, but I do encourage people to have a look and look at the information and
I still like my traffic light idea. Looking for any more comments or questions from council? Motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Mike, thank you for all the hard work that you've done on this. Investment conference.
This is 10B, there's no motions here, although I might bring it forward, I think that might be a suggestion if you're making a motion forward.
You're asking for permission to go to this thing, is that what you're doing?
I'm asking for permission to go to this conference. I think it'd be fantastic. It's being held in Fernie. It's put on by the Elk Valley Investment and Economic Development Committee, and their idea is to bring capital and venture together. And I think there's a lot of synergy between our community and theirs. There's going to be a lot of interesting speakers there. You also have the Minister of Jobs and Tourism and Mayor's CAOs. So it'll be a mixing pot of individuals that are in our style community. It would be worthwhile for us to be there. The biggest thing I want to be there for is to see, we talk about economic development here, and we talk about bringing people to our community in different events, things that we can put on to spur development here. And here's a community they're doing it. They're putting a conference together to bring investors.
Is anyone prepared to put a motion on the floor to help Councillor Duke out? Councillor English.
That's put that motion on the floor.
Seconded by Councillor Sauls. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Nixon.
I just have one question about venture capitalism that's legal in Alberta, but it's my understanding that it's not yet legal in BC. Is that part of this conference? Is it a venture capitalist?
No, it's adventure.
Well, just have a look at how it says. It's add small and then venture capital. If BC's moving in this direction, I'm just wondering if that's what it's about.
Don't believe so.
It's more about bringing people together to put investment into small communities that adventure is a base of their economy, or a part of their economy, which definitely is true here in Revelstoke.
Okay, because I just question whether this is about venture capitalism, which is legal
I
in
didn't,
Alberta.
I didn't read that into it, but I just thought that looks like an opportunity to get economic development, and our main man on economic development is interested, and I would support Councillor Duke going to this conference. Motion to the floor to let Councillor Duke go to this conference with the expenses. All those in favor? Motion is carried. John Mark?
I'm in favor.
Well, I don't know why I asked for a vote, and I just could have went to John Mark. Thanks for your vote of confidence, John Mark.
Thank you.
Item C.
Your worship, I'll bring this forward. I move that the 2015-2016 annual report be made available for public inspection and be considered by council at the July 12, 2016 regular council meeting beginning at 3 p.m. in council chambers.
Motion by Councilor Lemon, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion?
This is the annual report that would normally be a Star Wars show in a normal council agenda, but in a council meeting, I'll just leave it as is and take any questions.
Have you got any comments, questions? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Municipal ticket information.
Your worship, I'll bring that forward. I move that municipal ticket information system amendment bylaw number 2116 be read first, second, and third time.
Motion by Councilor Lemon, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion?
Your worship, just for information, this has some updates to the MTI ticket system. If you've had a chance to read through, they're all pretty straightforward. For example, there's a bunch of stuff related to the chicken bylaw that you have to put in there now that you have a chicken bylaw. So those sorts of updates. And
I think of more interest is the things like the noise bylaw, where people are getting complaints. The first one is at a certain amount, and then the price tag escalates to encourage people to be good neighbors. And for those people that are concerned about noise in their neighborhood, there is a real action with a lot more teeth in it to get those people that are so inclined to get them more in line. Councilor English.
I'd just really like to point out and thank all the people that were consulted about this. A lot of thought has gone on into our municipal ticket. And I mean, like Aaron said, this is just providing some updates that we have to do, but there is certainly some teeth there, and I think it's a good thing, and I would like to publicly thank those people that have been involved.
Thank you. Any more comments? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
I'll step over item E as it's to do with vacation.
Your worship? I'll
Yes.
bring forward item number 1 under vacation rentals. And
We don't need to read all that, do we?
just that the community be engaged in consultation on vacation rentals and be invited to make written submissions to the city from June 20th, 2016 to July 20th, 2016, and further what's in your packages.
And Mr. Schreiber, you going to do a presentation on this?
Just very briefly.
Oh, sorry, I need a seconder for that motion. Councilor English.
Very briefly, Your Worship. We've been asked to look at vacation rentals annually at this point in time. This was due to come to council in May, and however it's come to council in June, as there has been a lot of input that's been coming into us from a variety of different organizations and individuals in the community, to the point that we felt that it was probably a good idea for council to consider opening it right up to the community and making it very clear that for a 30-day period, anyone in the community who has an interest in vacation rentals could have an opportunity to provide their written comments and submissions for council's consideration. These would be added to those that have been received this year from various organizations, so the council gets a fairly comprehensive package of information to consider. We also have a number of recommendations in here for staff to begin looking at possibly moving from passive or complaint response type of enforcement program to an active program, and asking council to direct us to move in that direction as far as some of the background information that we need. This is going to take some time to develop. If that program does indeed switch following the public consultation to a more active, and focusing those initial efforts on those vacation rentals that have more than 10 people within them, which is creating a life safety issue, which we have concern with. We'd like to get that focused in that place. Further from that, also beginning some discussions with the Accommodation Association and sort of looking at how vacation rentals could possibly be contributing towards the community marketing initiatives. And we've seen correspondence from the province that indicates that the province is looking at this more globally, and hopefully we'll see some action from them. But as an interim measure, until such time as the province moves their slower wheels of motion and gets something in place, we're hoping that we can help facilitate some sort of an agreement where they can contribute to the Accommodation Association and the good work they do in marketing the community. We also would like to look at a maximum number of vacation rentals in the city. This is a concern that's been brought forward on several occasions, and we sort of initially pushed it forward as saying, we haven't even started yet, let's see how it goes. And now we've been active with the bylaw for 2 years. We've essentially, we believe we've had most of the people who are interested in actually applying and going through the process have now come forward and applied, either have their applications denied or approved, or have chosen to move away from vacation rentals altogether. Now, what do we do with the rest of it? We've only addressed about 15 to 20% of vacation rentals in the community. How are we going to engage the other 75 to 80% and get them to move forward? With that, we want to look at what the maximum threshold is for the community. And where we're looking is towards what is the actual percentage of the accommodation market that is in our region that is interested in this type of accommodation. So 5% has been thrown around as a number for quite some time as being that percentage of the market that is interested in a vacation rental type of accommodation. We don't know if that's true today, so we want to sort of engage with some of the partners in the community as well as in the region and establish what that actual percentage of the marketplace is, and possibly link that then to the number of hotel rooms that we have in the community. So a percentage of hotel rooms would equate to a percentage of vacation rental bedrooms that could be made available. So if that is at 5 or 10%, then we would take 5 or 10% of the number of bed units that we have in the hotel industry and regulate the vacation rentals at that threshold. That does one of two things. It provides the community a benchmark, a threshold, where vacation rental approvals would then stop by council policy. It also provides an incentive. So for those that are thinking and sitting on the edge of the margin about applying, are now going to realize that there very well could be a future time where they would not be able to apply because the threshold's been released, and they would not be able to get their vacation rental. So if they're caught in a situation on bylaw enforcement, they would be forced then to shut down altogether. They wouldn't have the opportunity to apply. So we're hoping that that would encourage people to participate in the process, get that other 75 to 80% that are sitting on the fence right now to jump off the fence, get in the process, get their proper approvals, or get on releases. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor Dixon.
Just a question for Mr. Strachan, Your Worship. You recently were successful in getting a grant from CBT to do housing inventory data. Will that tie in somehow with vacation rentals, looking at that?
We were successful in getting a CBT grant for population and housing inventory related to the OCP review, which is in council's budget for this year. That won't directly relate, but it will be a peripheral question that's going to continue to be asked. This is we call somewhat a gross population is your accommodation population, and it's significant in resort communities. It's a population that isn't captured in census data. It's a population that comes and goes, but in certain seasons of the year is fairly significant. So it may turn over every week, but it's still that population that's constantly putting stresses on our sewer system, our water system, our roads, or all of the things that we have in the community, but it's not reflected in our census data. So when you say you have a population of 7,000 people, that's not true on December 21st.
Councilor Brothers.
A couple of comments, Mr. Strachan. One of the concerns that I have just about these proposals is focusing in on vacation rentals that have more than 8 people, because some of those vacation rentals might be very secure and safe, and then you might have people who have room for 2, and they might not be safe and secure. So I get that you're trying to prioritize, but I'm a little concerned about making sure that we look at all illegal vacation rentals and we make sure we check them all out rather than just focusing on those ones. And then the second comment I had is I'd like to see some kind of a cost analysis of what it will take to enforce these, coming from staff, to get some kind of an idea. Do we need more staff? Is it a temporary thing that we need in order to enforce? But I'd like to see, what is it going to cost to make sure that we enforce this? And I suspect there's going to be an upfront cost, and then once it'll level out once we get things going. But if we can ask staff to do that as well, you know?
Your worship, the first part of the question is relation, why are we sort of focusing on those 10 plus? There's a building code issue. So as soon as you have more people in a residential building than 10, we've got a building code issue. So we've got the reason we're focusing on that is we do have that code issue that we have a responsibility to address. So it's not necessarily that it's poorly maintained or not correctly constructed. You've now hit a threshold when you're putting more than 10 people in a single-family dwelling. But the classification of the building has changed. We have a concern with. And that's why the threshold in the zoning bylaw is kept at 8, is to keep that from getting close to that threshold where we do have a life safety issue and a liability. So we're aware of these buildings. We have the responsibility to address them, which is why we identified them as a priority, not being the only place that we focus, but we have to prioritize those in our opinion, because it's this other issue. When you get over that threshold, you're becoming something different than just a single family dwelling.
So really what you're saying is that we've picked a place where we want to start.
Your worship, yes, we've identified a place to begin with, a priority, not the place to end it, not the place to only focus on, but a place that we feel has an important attention that should be addressed first.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see this process getting started. There's a lot of people that have questions or comments, and looking forward to hearing from them. Some of the things that we've been receiving, we had a presentation here from Mr. Tobin. I'm assuming that any presentations or any comments that we would have would become part of this process moving forward.
That's correct, Your Worship. We're indicating that this 30-day period is open to any communication you receive, written communication received. And we do plan to incorporate any submissions that were made this year. We're not looking backwards into 2015-14, but just any submissions that we received this year will be added to that information to report back to council. We do intend to come back to council with a recommended course of action. We're preliminarily looking at going from a passive or a response type of program to an active program. We would of course bring forward any costing that we would associate with that, and any risks that may be associated, legal risks that may be associated with pursuing that program. We brought those risks forward with the previous council in 2014, and again with council when they made the decision to go towards a complaint-only program. What it would take to go to an active enforcement. It's likely not going to be an addition in resources for development services. It would likely be additional resources in bylaw enforcement that are going to be necessary. Boots on the ground type of scenario.
Any more comments or questions? Councilor Lamb.
Your Worship, yeah, I'm happy to see this come forward. My main concern about the way we have it structured currently is it creates division in the community and also makes these decisions political decisions. I'm looking forward to seeing what the community has to say and when we get broad input from everyone. And I think there's lots of good steps outlined here. And it is, the motion does mention the fact that, you know, we're going to continue to monitor the efforts of the provincial government, which is a key part of this. We just don't have a lot of the tools to solve the problem. It requires them to move and come up with some solutions, or at least signal their position. So I hopefully, as we move through this process, they will have some solutions or positions forthcoming sooner than later.
Okay. Questions on the floor? Any other comments? Councilor Nixon.
Just going to UBCM this fall, I think Mr. Fassbender will be looking for feedback, and we certainly will be providing that to him, I'm sure, from this table, once we get some of this data collected.
Any other comments? Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Motion's carried. Could you let our councillor in?
Oh.
No.
There's more than one.
Oh. Oh, we did them all at one
I thought
time.
we did the whole package.
Well, no, we have to do number 2.
Sorry, okay, number 2, that in preparation for a potential change in direction on bylaw enforcement for vacation rentals from a complaint-only program to an active enforcement program following completion of the public consultation period, staff undertake the following as in your packages.
Seconder for that motion, Councilor English. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Do we need to do them one at a time? Number 3?
Okay, number 3, that staff engage in discussion with the Revelstoke Accommodation Association on the opportunity for membership and contribution from vacation rentals toward community marketing initiatives.
Motion by Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried.
That staff research and develop a recommendation to council on a maximum number of vacation rentals in the city.
Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor Lando. Discussion? All in favor?
That staff continue to monitor the efforts of the provincial government and other communities on vacation rentals.
Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion's carried.
That staff prepare and make available a welcome guide for owners and operators of vacation rentals to give to renting customers outlining the city bylaw regulations and encouraging respectful behavior during their visit to our community.
Motion by Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor Sauls. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Now, would you like Councilor Dukin?
Sure.
All right.
Sorry, excuse me.
Councilor Duke, I would like you to take over the chair for a few minutes, but the whole issue of vacation rental got me so excited I have to step out for a minute.
Oh, this is going to remain some of this stuff on your table there, Linda.
Yes. Okay, your worship, I'll bring forward that the application to rezone lots 6 and 7, plan 1190, section 34, township 23, range 2, west of the 6th meridian, Cooley district, 100 Track Street, east, and 101 Mutas Street east, from R1 single residential district to R3 medium density residential district in order to permit row housing and stacked row housing be approved.
By Councilor Nixon, seconder. Councilor English. Presentation, Mr. Sully.
Zoned subject property is located 100 Track Street East and 101, I've been calling it Moloch, it's Mutas, right? As proposed, they're proposing to rezone the subject property from R1 single family to R3 medium density. This is in line with the existing official community plan, land use designation of T4 walk-up residential. I'll leave it at that, if you have questions.
Questions from council?
I just think this is a really unique opportunity, good location, I'm really supportive of this.
Any comments? Councilor Lando?
Yeah, it's great. Dave was someone who's bringing forward plans to go
I'm also excited for this. Anybody else? We'll go call a question. All in favor? Passes.
I'll bring forward that zoning amendment bylaw number 2112 be read a first and second time and staff be directed to schedule a public hearing.
Moved by Councilor Nixon, second by Councilor English. Comments? Questions? All those in favor? Motion passes. All right, we have the buy ourselves some more time to get the mayor back, and you want me to do this big stuff, okay, here it is. We just finished, yeah.
Well done.
Good job, Mr. Duke.
Nice softball there.
Um,
Okay, I will move forward G, the application to amend official community plan OCP bylaw number 1950 to redesign the property lot 1, plan 11177 Mutas Road from Columbia Shuswap Regional District CSRD OCP designation rural residential 2 to a City of Revelstoke OCP designation of future growth and to designate the property as development permit area D and schedule G be approved.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. So, then Mr. Strike will do a presentation, and we're going to do these one at a time.
Your Worship, as noted, we have an application for a property that was recently annexed into the city of Revelstoke in December of last year. The property is on Mutas Road. It is currently a vacant parcel. The applicant is seeking to make an OCP amendment as well as a rezoning. The OCP amendment and the rezoning for this parcel are a necessary requirement following annexation. There's two options that can be pursued. One is the city can pursue a OCP amendment and a rezoning to match the designation and zoning that was in place at the time it was brought in. Excuse me. Or the applicant can make an application to rezone and redesignate to a different designation that would automatically be provided. Currently, it carries its regional district OCP designation and its regional district zoning, and it carries those two designation and zoning until such time as council changes it. So that's where the status is of the property. When it was brought into the city, it brought those two bylaws with them. The application would be to change it to allow for the property to be developed. The property is proposed to be developed for an accommodation. The proposal includes a number of components within a CD zone, a comprehensive development zone. It would see a portion of the property be developed, but as well a portion of the property remain as park or private park as a protection mechanism for components that are somewhat problematic due to topography. We've got some steep slopes, and you'll see those in your package here. There's a steep slope section associated with the bottom of the property as well as it runs through the center of the property. These create a problem for construction as well as create issues for slope management. So we've asked for those spaces to remain within a no-build area. And you see them delineated as that, including them as parkland. We don't want them as city parks necessarily, but we want them to be private parks and protected as green space. We don't have issues with them. There's a number of transportation as well as other infrastructure that will pass through these areas, but for the most part they're to be retained as parkland within the development area. The other part of this development includes a number of covenants, the first one being related to a master development agreement. As the proposal for this project is not to develop it all at once, but develop in a series of phases, similar to what we've seen with other projects, we need that master development agreement to make sure it all makes sense and all the pieces fall together in the long run. So that the first phase doesn't create issues with the second, with the third, and so forth. So the end product, we don't have an issue. It's all designed as a single entity. However, it's not going to be built as a single entity. This also allows for securities to be retained by phase, so that we aren't asking for engineered securities for other components that aren't going to be constructed for many, many years. The area that's to be constructed on the particular phase is released from the covenant, the 219 covenant for it, while the remainder of the property remains under the 219 no-build covenant until those phases of detailed design work are completed. This one contains a 219 covenant which is somewhat unique in that the applicant is proposing to not only register a phased covenant for a master development plan as well as a phased component that includes some restrictions. So the restrictions proposed are that the no-build covenant would apply to the remaining area of land, while this first phase would be released from that covenant. So only the first phase of development would be permitted under that covenant. The two Conditions that have been brought forward by the applicant were for a 5-year period of time, as well as a 2-year period of time, allowing Revelstoke Mountain Resort to proceed with their master development plan. The 5 years being an opportunity to have no other development take place on this property. And these 2 items are in response to concerns that were expressed in advance of the application actually making its way to council. The applicant amended their application to try and address some of these concerns. Some of the other components within the application are the travel through corridors. So there is in the master development plan for the resort, in the master development agreement plan for the resort, there is a vision of this connecting through this property to lands beyond for future lifts and expansion areas. The applicant has proposed to allow for a statutory right-of-way through the property for that purpose that would be in favor of the city for the public. So we would be the retainer of the public access through the property to allow for that transportation to take place. The reason we are proposing it to be done through statutory right-of-way is as a municipality, we want to limit the amount of infrastructure that we take on. And these particular pieces of infrastructure in hillside areas do carry a significant cost for maintenance as well as replacement. Where there's the opportunity for those to remain with the development, we're pursuing that opportunity, and this would be that type of piece of infrastructure. We don't really want that road to be in our portfolio of roads to be maintained and to be replaced over time. We want it to be maintained and replaced by the adjacent development as it's needed to be done. And those are the major components of the application. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Strachan. Councilor Duke, do you have any comments that you'd like to make? Since you made the motion, I'm going to you first.
I'll start it off saying that I'm in support.
I would like to go next, and I want to say that I have some big concerns about what we are talking about here and the implications. When I was first approached about the idea of a tree hotel and the annexation of the property, I was very supportive of it. I still am supportive of the tree hotel. I have concerns about other phases of the development, and that's where I have a problem. I would rather that we were approving one section of this property as a tree hotel. When I was first approached about it, it was a 60 unit. I think even going as high as 100 unit is acceptable. But other development of 3 or 4 hotels that could possibly be in here, I have big concerns about. When I first got on council, I won't go back too far, but 1990 I got on council, and it was because there was a ski hill coming. And we talked with one development group and one developer company after another. And after 9 years of being on council, I decided I wanted to do other things and did not run. Took 3 years off and then decided that the only way to keep moving the community forward, I was encouraged by friends and family to come back as mayor. And my number one goal was to get the ski hill sold and developed and off the backs of the taxpayers. We were at the time, as a community, subsidizing the ski hill by $150,000 a year to keep it operating, knowing that we needed the recreation facility. And the other reason was that we felt that it would be difficult to sell and develop a ski hill that we weren't prepared to operate and run. So we did run it at a cost to the taxpayer. Every developer that came into town, I pretty well met with and tried to talk him into taking over the resort. One of the commitments that I made personally was that I would be there through thick and thin to help this development become successful, become an economic generator for the community, and not just write us a check and good luck, see you later. And I feel that, that the resort needs the support of council, city hall, and the community. And I feel in a little bit of a difficult situation as I'm perceived by a lot of the community as pro-development, which I am. And again, going back to the original concept here was a tree hotel, and I was very supportive of it and still am. And I can't support the motion that we were moving forward. If the motion was, if the application was changed for a tree hotel, the rest of the property was R1 or something else, I would be in favor of that. Knowing full well that there is opportunities in the future with expansion of the community of the resort and the need for more accommodations up in this area, that the proponent could come back and go through rezoning. But at this time right now, I feel one hotel and the rest is R1 is more supportable by myself. Councillor Nixon.
Your worship, I respect RMR and all that they do for Revelstoke. I call them the Golden Goose. And when people are disgruntled with their taxes, I want to say, show me your books from 2004 and show me your books from 2014. Because RMR has put Revelstoke on the global map. They've made us into a destination tourism town. But I still feel that this is a piece of land that was pointed out to RMR, to Northlands, by a local realtor and said, you really should look at this piece of land and buy it. And I feel that another Canadian citizen saw this piece of land and saw potential, and he purchased it. And he came to the city for annexation into the city. And I hear you about the Treetop Hotel. I'm really for the Treetop Hotel. The young people are talking about the Treetop Hotel. The older people my age are talking about the Treetop Hotel. I think it's a great concept. But I believe that this is a person with capital that has come to Revelstoke that wants to put capital into Revelstoke. And I think you have to put your Solomon hat on and without bias, get these two organizations to dance with each other. And without bias, sit them down in a room together. I think they would feel safe with that. And you're not a mediator, but you just let them know that they need to work together for the good of all of Revelstoke. Because yes, RMR has led the way, and they've done a good job, and they do a lot of good in the community. They just had the students from RSS up there giving them free rides on the coaster. They're a good citizen that way. But in a democratic society, that piece of land was sitting there, and Mr. Evans bought it, and he wants to develop it.
Councillor Brothers.
I sort of side with what Councillor Nixon has just said. This is a really difficult decision. I hear what you're saying, Your Worship, and I understand what the Mount RMR has contributed to this community. There's no doubt about it. But I have to say that we have a developer who has come forth with a very interesting and I think a very good proposal. The other thing I have to commend Mr. Evans for is he listened to some of the concerns that council raised, and he made some adjustments to his proposal, which I think are fair adjustments. And I think what he's saying to RMR is, I've made some adjustments here. I'd love to chat with you about these proposals that I've made. And I think indirectly he's encouraging RMR to come back and say, okay, well, let's talk, and here's what I see. What I would like to see, and my understanding is this is an application that will go, if it goes through and council approves it, then we go to first and second reading, then we go to a possible public hearing. So there's some time in there for Mr. Evans and RMR, first of all, for RMR to respond and to say, well, you know, here's what we're doing with the mountain. And frankly, I would like to hear from RMR as to what their 5-year plan is or something like that. We have Mr. Evans who has proposed something for the next 5 years. I'd like to hear from RMR too. And here's an opportunity where we've got something on the table. There's an opening here. Can we hear a response from RMR as to what they're proposing and how it dovetails or doesn't dovetail with Mr. Evans' plan? And then we can go from there. We can take a look at it and go from there.
Councillor Souls and Councillor Duke.
Your worship, after reading through this and giving some thought to this, my original thought was to come to council today and ask for this to be deferred for 1 month to give time for the ski hill to give some comment to this. But having listened to the protocol and how things go, I think there is ample time for us to have them come forward, give their plan as to what they're going to do. I was a little concerned when I read through a little further on in the package that they're being told by this developer, we're prepared to put on a covenant, and but in the meantime, you come up with your plan and let us know what your plan is, and then if you don't do a plan, we're just going to go ahead anyway. And that's, I take that as it's somebody coming to my business and saying, well, I'm going to build this, and if you don't come up with a plan in 2 years and I approve of your plan, I'm just going to go ahead. So I was a little concerned about those sorts of words and how legal a covenant like this is. But having said that, I think we need to hear, as Councilor Brothers has indicated, that we need to hear from the ski hill as to what their plans are. Give them a chance to look this over, come back to us and say this is going to work. And as Councilor Nixon has indicated, we talked briefly about this at last council meeting. If there's some way that we could get these two in a room with a mediator and basically say, okay, we need to work this out as to how we're going to go forward. We can't stand in the way of development, but we do need to stand behind those who are here as well and say we want this to be comprehensive and a win-win for everybody. And I think the only way to do that is through discourse. So I think if we put this through where we go to the next step, there is some ample time for some discourse to be had and some comments to come from the speaker.
Councilor Duke.
So as we become counselors for a longer period of time, get more experience with this stuff, and we've had some tough ones come down the pipeline, and this one's another one of them. And I look at us as this team as not to choose winners and losers, and what business should win and what business should lose, or not to choose, who are we going to make happy and who are we going to make sad. Our job is to set policy and set bylaw, and this is a zoning issue. So I look at it and I say, okay, in the future, Mark, you worked for countless years, 15 years on trying to get a ski hill built, knocking on doors, trying to get a developer here. We're very fortunate that our group has developers that are coming to our door and knocking on our door at this point in time. And if we look at this land, what is it going to be in the future? When you look at 15 years, there's a high probability that this land will be developed to service the ski hill. And it's happening now, which is even more exciting than it happening in 15 years. And I'm not going to be the one that sits here and tries to slow it down, because I think that this is a good use of this land.
Well, I think a couple of comments that people have made around the table are interesting. And the land was available for sale at RMR, didn't buy it. And they're going, well, if you got 400 acres or whatever it is that you have available to develop or more, why would you go and buy 18 more acres when you've got hundreds of acres? And I think that two other comments I want to make. One is, if there was no resort here right now, and somebody came to us and gave a presentation and says, I want to build a ski resort here and I want to really grow the town, I want to be the biggest economic generator, what would we do as a council and a community? Because that was the question 20 years ago. And the answer is, we will be there through thick and thin, and we'll help you through all the issues, and because we want it to be successful. And this isn't about the Evans, who I think are wonderful people. It's a zoning issue, it's a planning issue, it's a support for the biggest economic generator in the community, and I think that we're losing them, and that's what I think that we should be careful of. And you look around the room, and I would say a high percentage of the people that are in this room right now are here because the ski hill was here. Well, that proves to me and shows the community how important this is as an economic generator. I'm not saying that the development moving forward on here is not going to be important, because it will be. It's just a matter of when and showing support for RMR. I'm just concerned that we're cutting off our nose to spite our face. And this has nothing to do with Evans in the proposal, and again, I've already told RMR that I support the Tree Hotel. I think it's a good concept, and I think that I said that you got a pro-development mayor, and for the most part, a pro-development council. It's going to be difficult for them to say no to it, and this is going back a year and a half ago. Here we are today. I still support the Tree Hotel. That's the concept that was sold to me, and that's the concept that I supported, and I still support. It's taking it another step farther is, I think, is one step too far at this particular time, and throwing in items like do your master plan or the deal's off and we're going to start building in 2 years. I don't think that that's the type of tripartite agreement that we should be involved in. I find that a little bit bizarre, to be honest. Mr. Strachan.
Sorry, Your Worship, I just had to go back to, I was supposed to at the beginning, explain where we're at in this process, because this is a major project. And Councilor Brothers, as well as Councilor Nixon, asked me to explain that at the beginning, and I neglected to do so, so my apologies. This is the resolution is to approve the application. So with major projects, we've committed to slowing the process a little bit, to allow for more time for consideration. So this one is only coming to council to approve the application. It doesn't include the bylaws for consideration of first and second reading. That will come to the next meeting, which offers an additional 2 weeks of consideration for not only council but the community, prior to a public hearing being scheduled. So if the application is approved to go forward, it is to go forward for the bylaws to be created, brought back to council. Council will then again consider it, consider granting first and second reading and scheduling of a public hearing where the community would have the opportunity to provide input.
Councilor Brothers.
And I have to reiterate what Councilor Duke has said. This is not about who we're going for, or who we're not, who we're supporting or not supporting. We're looking at what is best for this community. We all recognize that RMR is fundamental to this community. We need to have a relationship with RMR, and we need to work with RMR. But on the other hand, we can't stop overall development. We have to go forward. Mr. Evans has put forward a good development, and all I'm suggesting is let's put this through, and then let's hear from RMR as to where they're coming from and what their plans are, and how, you know, if they say, and they are telling us, it will impact on their development and their future development, then I'd like to hear from RMR as to what they have to say, because as a councillor, I would like to be able to hear everything and weigh it so that I can make a proper decision. But right now, I have Mr. Evans's proposal, and I'd like to hear from RMR. So I think we should put it through and move forward, as Mr. Stratton said, slowly, and go to the next step.
I would rather put an application through that I can support. That's the reason why I'm talking the way I'm talking. And, you know, anyways, I think I've said enough. Who else would like to comment? Councillor Souls.
Your Worship, if I could ask Mr. Strachan a question. So if this were to go through as is written here, and we go through to the next step, is there some way that if we're not happy with how things are rolling out, that we can basically say, no, we'll approve the Tree Hotel, but we're not going to approve this other thing going forward? Or are we basically locked into what's written before us?
Your Worship, the council has full discretion to amend any of the conditions as well as any component of it if they wish. They may require us to go back and redo second reading and so forth to amend it. And there may be certain components that we may ask to go back to the applicant to check with them on it as well. But there may be additional conditions that council comes forward with as a result of hearing from the community. And there may be conditions that are part of the current recommendation the council may not feel are necessary or may need tweaking, and all of those opportunities are open to council all the way through to the end of the process if it goes that far.
Councillor Sauce.
Your Worship, if I can make a statement, and after hearing that, if we were to make we go back to RMR and basically say, can you give us your plan going forward? And they say, absolutely, this is our plan, this is what we plan to do, and how we want to go forward, and it doesn't fit in with what we're doing here other than improving the Tree Hotel. And I feel at that point then we can change our thought process and make it work for both. But if if the ski hill were able to say to us, we're not interested in giving you our plan, or we're not interested in planning or telling you what, and I think in my years anyway, I'm hearing that they're not willing to